Hi everyone, great to see you here, and thanks for taking your time to join us. Now, as people are just joining us, we're just going to go through a couple of housekeeping notes. Please feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A panel at any time. We'll try our best to answer them throughout, and we'll wrap up with a dedicated Q&A session if any haven't been answered. This session is also being recorded. We'll send this recording out shortly afterwards. If we don't get to all of your questions, we will also follow up. And if you'd like to connect with Jamf directly, please do direct questions to info@jamf.com because that's the fastest way to reach us. My name is Matt Pullen. I work on the product marketing team here at Jamf. And in today's session, we're going to be taking a look at how MacBook Neo in education brings that full power of Apple to every classroom. So let's get started. Now, when new devices like the Neo arrive in education, the conversation often starts with price or specs. But the more important question schools should ask is, what learning experience does this device now enable? Today, we're going to talk about how MacBook Neo fits into a broader education technology strategy and how Jamf helps schools deploy the right device for that right purpose. Now, many schools historically have tried to solve every problem with a single device, but learning environments are diverse. Sometimes the right tool is an iPad, sometimes it's a Mac. The goal isn't picking one device. The goal is choosing the right device for the right learning experience. And with more budget-conscious MacBook Neo, that becomes more realistic of a choice, without disrupting learning, because it all sits on that same ecosystem. And Apple devices work best as an ecosystem. iPad brings accessibility, mobility, and intuitive learning. Mac brings creation, advanced workflows, and professional tools. Together, they enable schools to match technology to learning outcomes. And when that sits on the Jamf ecosystem, you create a seamless and focused learning experience that supports education through management, security, identity, and that classroom and home learning focus tool. Now, MacBook Neo expands access to Mac for more schools, but the real opportunity isn't just a new device. It's enabling more students to access tools for creativity, coding, media production, or advanced coursework, taking advantage of Apple continuity tools for seamless work across devices, and supporting students through their education journey into higher education, where device choice meets career needs, vocational learning opportunities, and industry-specific requirements. In many schools, Mac isn't replacing iPad. Instead, it adds capability when needed. Mac carts are a great example. Students may use iPad every day, but switch to Mac when they need professional creative tools. And making that switch needs to be seamless, which is where the Apple continuity plays a huge role. Start on one device and simply carry on where you left off. Managed Apple accounts make that transition simple. And simplicity is what makes technology in classrooms effective. Teachers don't want to be carrying the burden of having to set up IT, moving between devices, worrying about passwords. They just want to move in the same way they might move from paper and pen to an art book. It's simple, it's seamless, and it makes sure that learning is the focus of everything in that classroom. And this is the real challenge for education. When you think about managing multiple devices, you're bringing in added complexity to your whole system. If you're trying to support both iPad and Mac, you want to remove that complexity. IT teams need to manage multiple devices, multiple logins, multiple different workflows. And when you add that complexity, you do slow down learning. So the critical thing is, how do you make sure that those devices are sat on the right platform to minimize that impact and make sure, again, focus is always on that learning. Now, Jamf isn't just about device management. We help schools really deploy technology with a clear purpose, aligned to teaching and learning workflows, whether that's iPad and Mac, shared iPad, a Mac one-to-one, or an iPad one-to-one. The critical thing is here, Jamf supports how those devices are used in a learning environment, built on a sustained Apple education ecosystem. Now, many platforms focus only on that device configuration. They'll help you get devices set up, but they don't think about that full use case through to the classroom and beyond. Jamf focuses on the entire experience, from deployment through daily classroom use. From that initial decision to choose Apple as a teaching and learning tool, we support all stakeholders along the way to make sure needs are met. From that initial setup and ongoing management layer, ensuring devices are in the right state for the different users. We engage teachers, students, and parents with tools that support their specific needs and then empower them further with the correct setup and life cycle of the focus tools they need in their classrooms. And that final layer of security that brings confidence to the whole deployment, that wherever and whenever a device is used, both the student and the network is protected. And finally, we support those teachers in the classroom with professional learning, whether that be from Jamf ourselves or working alongside Apple to make sure that the awareness of how tools should and could be used is paramount in every teacher's mind. And when it comes to MacBook Neo and purposeful deployment, we really want to think about exactly what that device is trying to do in the classroom. When Mac-enabled classrooms are set up, you have more access to devices that really make a difference in the classroom. They really empower students to go that little bit further with what they might be creating. But it doesn't mean that you don't use both devices when they're appropriate. And we've seen some great use cases out there where students work on an iPad because it brings that mobility, and then they quickly port that learning over to their MacBook to go that little bit further with what they're trying to create. And that's what we do in the real world. Teaching students to use the right device at the right time without the complexity of moving between ecosystems really helps them understand their place in the world. It really gives them that notion of what technology should do for them and not what they're trying to make do with the technology that they're provided. Now, as Mac adoption grows, there does become challenges for schools, as we've said. You start to think about those opportunities where this becomes a technology deployment and not an iPad or Mac deployment, or even where you might have additional laptop tools in place as well. That adds complexity and makes it more difficult for teachers to really believe in the technology as being a learning tool in the classroom. And this is where that ecosystem really shines. With Jamf managing the devices and identity integrated across the environment, students can switch easily between devices. The right tool for the task without losing learning time. And education deployments need to last. We understand the budget constraints that all education institutions are going through. Apple's build quality and that residual value make long-term programs more sustainable. Jamf helps those schools deploy and manage all of these programs at scale. And the critical thing here is that when a student starts their learning journey, they don't want technology to be disrupted midway through because of budget constraints. So really thinking about that long life cycle alongside a student's life cycle within school is critical. They don't want to have the newest, latest equipment when they start their journey, only to be hampered towards the end of their journey with things that are outdated. Building that program that lasts along the life cycle of a child really helps that student know their place within education, is sustainable with the technology that they become reliant on to make sure they get the best outcomes. Now let's move on to the second part. We're starting to think about managing iPads within school as something that's just commonplace. We've been doing it for years. But if you already manage iPads, you already know how to manage MacBook Neo. Our same platform covers both, and we'll walk through some of these key building blocks. Apple device, enrollment, device groups, service, and blueprints. And then we'll look at how blueprints and declarative device management are making macOS updates management even simpler. So let's start with ADE. Exactly like an iPad, MacBook Neo contacts Apple on its first boot. It gets recognized via Apple School Manager and joins Jamf School automatically. No IT visit, no imaging. With device groups, that same filter logic you use for iPad device groups works for MacBook Neo. OS version, year group, hardware model, any custom field. Build the group once, scope to both platforms. And with self-service, staff and students already know self-service from their iPads, whether that's the self-service app or Jamf Student. On MacBook Neo, it's identical. You can browse and install approved apps without needing admin rights or Apple IDs. And with our new blueprints, Jamf School's declarative device management powered configuration interface, you define your settings, restrictions, apps, and update policies declaratively. The device applies and maintains them autonomously. No extra scoping required. And our key point, MacBook Neo doesn't require a new platform, a new license, or a new set of skills. If your team manages iPads today, you're already equipped to understand how MacBook Neo can fit into your rollout. And this is what impresses iPad admins most when they first see it on a Mac. We're going to look at that zero IT intervention. MacBook Neo ships directly to the classroom, the student, or the IT room. It powers on and arrives on the desktop fully configured. And if we take a look at just device groups in Jamf School, this is where our targeting works automatically. The moment that device is enrolled, it receives the configuration and apps scoped to its group. And this is exactly the same flow you already run for every iPad. MacBook Neo is absolutely identical. Same Apple School Manager assignment, same Jamf School pre-stage, same zero-touch result. So in these 5 steps, you absolutely roll out these new devices in the same way you do with iPad. It's just a different form factor for that end user use case. And we have different app delivery methods. All work the same across iPad and MacBook Neo. As we said, self-service, your on-demand catalog where students and staff can just simply click to install. Jamf School handles the rest. You don't need to worry about your Apple ID or admin password. With our automated patching, third-party apps like Chrome or Teams update silently in the background. We just can set this policy once, and Jamf School helps keep everything patched. And with VPP, via Apple School Manager, all of those licensed apps deploy silently as well to your MacBook Neos. That same frictionless, no prompt experience that you're used to on an iPad. So with MacBook Neo, there's no extra complexity. That same App Store and Apple School Manager pipeline you use for iPad extends to MacBook Neo without any reconfiguration. And when we talk about device groups, they're already probably familiar to everybody listening. It's really important to understand that that same query engine works across device types in Jamf School. So if you have a device group for Year 10 iPads running iPad OS 17 or older, you can build an equivalent one for Year 10 MacBook Neos running macOS 14.3 or older, with the same criteria. Different blueprint payloads, same familiar targeting. Now this matters for OS update targeting, app scoping, and blueprint assignment. One consistent framework across MacBook Neo and iPad. And if you're new to blueprints or DDM, let's just take a moment to just have a look at how this is changing how devices are set up. Traditional MDM is server initiated. Jamf School sends a command, the device executes, the server polls in to check, works, but it's reactive and can miss some silent failures. With blueprints, it's declarative. The paradigm shifts. In Jamf School, you create a blueprint defining the desired state. macOS on each MacBook Neo reads it locally, evaluates compliance, applies what's needed, and reports back, without waiting to be asked. Blueprints are Jamf School's interface to Jamf's Apple Declarative device management framework from Apple. And it works just the same on Jamf Pro if you're using that tool as well. Now, why does this matter? Because it's faster compliance, it's proactive reporting. MacBook Neo tells Jamf School, I'm in a state, rather than Jamf School having to ask. And at scale, this is significantly more efficient. So these are the steps. Step 1, create a blueprint. In Jamf School, just add in manage software update or anything else you need as a blueprint. Set the minimum macOS version and a deadline. That's the entire admin task. Then the device evaluates. macOS on each MacBook reads that blueprint locally and checks its own compliance. No polling from Jamf School required. Then step 3. The device applies it. If it's out of compliance, macOS downloads and installs the update autonomously. The student or teacher sees a countdown notification, and when that deadline arrives, it installs automatically. And finally, the device reports. Its compliance status comes back to Jamf School automatically, and you can pass or fail it in the console without even needing to query that device. It's that simple. As we say, we're making the devices clever. They do a lot of the work themselves, which frees up IT to make sure those things are set up in advance, but not have to worry about those things being set instantly, which again impacts in the classroom where teachers might not want it to impact on a certain lesson or workflow that they're being used to. But when that time of compliance comes, IT know that it's going to be in place because that compliance is already on that device in the form of a declaration. Now let's just take a look at getting started. Everything from here is actionable. Some prerequisites that you can check from that first MacBook Neo enrollment all the way through. We'll think about baseline configuration, OS update policies, and that day-to-day management picture in Jamf School. By the end of this section, we should be able to think about those steps. So these are critical things that you may need in place before enrolling your first MacBook Neo. The great thing here is if you're already managing iPads with Jamf School, you're already there. MacBook Neo management is included in everything we do at Jamf. So therefore, if you've got iPads in place, you're already set up to do everything you need with MacBook Neo. Jamf School, one platform, both devices. The other things that are critical, obviously, are thinking about all of your network, Apple School Manager, and then thinking about that pre-stage enrollment so that it's set up as soon as it lands in the hands of that end user. Now, Jamf School's pre-stage enrollment delivers that MDM profile without any user interaction. And that's critical because a student doesn't need to see any MDM prompts. They just get a streamlined setup assistant. Now, if you've already done this for an iPad in your school, this is going to feel really familiar. It's the same Apple School Manager assignment, same pre-stage, same zero-touch result, just on a MacBook instead. And thinking about a baseline as a minimum consistent state every MacBook Neo should be in from day one. Here's just some things to consider. First, a security baseline, a configuration profile or blueprint that enables FileVault disk encryption, Gatekeeper, and system integrity protection automatically at enrollment, before that login is even taking place. That means you're not relying on the student to make any security decisions. That's critical. Secondly, the core software you're using. Anything every MacBook Neo needs. Productivity suite, browser accessibility tools, scope to an all MacBook Neo's device group or something similar. That installs silently at enrollment. Again, no user action is required. And finally, OS update blueprints. Add that managed software update to a blueprint with your minimum supported macOS version. scope it out to all of your MacBook Neos, and then from day one, every enrolled device is on that path to compliance. And then keeping those MacBooks on the right OS is really simple. Open Blueprints, add your Managed Software Update, set that minimum macOS version and a deadline. Scope the blueprint to your MacBook Neo device, save, and that's it. The entire admin task done in under 2 minutes. macOS on each enrolled MacBook Neo reads that blueprint, evaluates compliance, and if an update is needed, notifies the student or teacher with a countdown. Now, if they decide to skip it, when that deadline finally arrives, the update will install automatically. So you can utilize those prompts so that teachers or students can feel in power of when they might want to update it. However, when you get to that final deadline, it will automatically update, removing that burden of having unupdated devices. If we compare this to the old approach, pushing MDM commands, you poll for statuses, chase non-compliant devices, Blueprints removes all of that. Declare once, macOS handles the rest. And now once those MacBook Neos are enrolled and baselined, here's what ongoing management looks like in Jamf School. You get that live inventory, Jamf School maintaining a real-time record of every MacBook Neo, hardware, installed apps, macOS version, custom attributes, always current, always searchable. Useful for asset tracking, compliance reporting, and planning those refresh cycles. You also get those remote actions. From the Jamf School console, you can lock, wipe, or restart any MacBook Neo remotely. Useful if a device is lost or needs attention without a user present. And patch compliance. Device groups and blueprints keep third-party software and macOS current. The compliance view shows which MacBook Neos are behind and by how much at a simple glance. Self-service, in the same way on iPads, helps so students and staff install those approved apps and tools for themselves, reducing help desk load, fewer tickets, more autonomy without admin rights. And now everything you've seen today runs in the same Jamf School console you already use for iPads. MacBook Neo management is an extension of what you already do, not a new system to learn. And this means that when you choose the device that fits your learning goals, Jamf is here to ensure it's ready to succeed. From deployment at scale, making sure that you can get those simple setups in place. We secure everything by design to make sure that the MacBook and iPad security is added on to make sure that your network security is equally as sound, built into the device, not as an add-on. And we always make sure that everything we do means that you're ready for teaching and learning, because the investment in devices is realized by students and teachers using them in the classroom in the right way. So with Jamf, MacBook Neo becomes more than just a device. It becomes a secure, scalable learning platform, ready for learning the moment you open the lid. And our approach makes it possible to balance that device-specific need with device-agnostic ones. Identity and access management work across all platforms, Apple, Google, Microsoft, ensuring every user gets personalized access regardless of that device. Then Jamf elevates the Apple experience with that deep management, security, filtering, and engagement capabilities. Now, all of this gives institutions true device choice. Identity governs the access, Jamf governs the Apple experience, and together they support specific curriculum or end-user needs. This is where we see device choice meeting device purpose. And with MacBook Neo, technology is there to support the learning, not complicate it. When schools combine the Apple ecosystem with Jamf, they gain the flexibility to choose the right device for the right moment in learning. That's it for this session. I hope you found this insightful and learned some useful information to support your deployment journey. We'd love to hear all of the things that you're doing with technology. If you do have additional questions, please hold and we'll answer them after this.